Well, you just said it. It is a job seekers market. What we've seen, though, over the last couple of years, though, obviously the pandemic has played a huge role in that, and I did want to speak to that. It is something that we have to mention, but the COVID pandemic itself really disrupted the labor market. We saw that regionally here across Vancouver Island, provincially, nationally, globally. It impacted the market. Everyone thought this would be a short-term event. We'd be working from home really for a couple weeks and then back to work, carrying on like nothing happened. Obviously, other plans were in store. As folks had to adjust to working from home, so working remotely, other workers were, if they were working and not laid off, were now deemed essential workers and were working in healthcare settings, retail stores, trucking and transportation, logistics operations. Right. But everyone else was left to figure it out and try and find something. So that impacted the labor market. Now, what I did want to share, and we've touched on it already, is the labor market disruption that we saw has actually been brewing well before COVID. COVID actually brought this to the forefront, and a lot of folks seem to think that all of this disruption we've seen, the labor market impacts, the shortages, are all because of this pandemic, but that was not the case. It was already there. This just brought it out to the forefront.
And is that because of retirement, people aging out of working, or just the changing workforce?
It's all part of it, okay. Right? Retirement is going to be a thing. People looking for other type of work is going to be a thing. People just wanting to transition away from full-time now into part-time is going to impact that as well. We now have the thought of the gig economy, right? People doing shorter term stints, contracts, all of those pieces add to this workforce disruption that we've seen.
Well, it is interesting because I think like when I started in the workforce, people were interested in staying with one employer for a long time. You know, you think about things like pension plans or whatever, but that doesn't seem to be as big of a draw anymore. People do expect to move from job to job frequently.
That's right. Yeah, so it's up to 2 years, 18 months or 2 years that a person could be expected to stay and work. The days of thinking this is where I'm going to be for life or the next 25 years or this is where I'm going to be until I retire, that has changed. It's there for some, but it's not there for everyone. And then we have workforce views for older, mature workers versus millennial workers, and all of that's different. And what I do in my role is I have those conversations with employers. Employers phone me on a daily, hourly basis sometimes to say, what am I doing wrong? How do I get people? I have had an ad posted for 6 weeks, 6 months. Why can't I get someone? How do I make this work? Help me.
What's the answer? What's the magic secret?
Well, I tell them, thank you for your call, but I can't resolve this just right now. It's going to take some time. I can help give you resources. I can help give you information. I can point you maybe in directions that you hadn't thought of before.
Right.
But I always say, let's talk about this. Let's see what we can figure out now over the telephone or in person to try and make something work for you. And so what I've seen is, and I've listed it here on the slides behind me, are just some things that we have learned. We've learned about culture, flexibility, accommodation. I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail. Autonomy is a big one. Health and wellness benefits, and they're more than just employee benefits packages nowadays. Workplace safety and what that means, especially in the pandemic, and then pay and compensation. Pay is not everything anymore, but it is definitely part of the conversation. All right, so if I look at culture itself should be one of the highest priorities for organizations. And we've learned that culture is more than a casual Friday or a foosball table in the lunchroom or muffins, donuts, treats brought in.
Culture a dog?
A dog. Culture is a lot more than that. And it's looking to transform how people work in workplaces today and how they feel about work, because those two things are really important. Culture and morale are considered intrinsically together now. Like culture, staff morale isn't always the easiest thing to pin down, but employers seem to notice when morale isn't there. It really sticks out. Creating a positive culture that focuses on well-being, diversity, and inclusion can help build morale by making each member of staff feel heard and valued. And we've heard those themes already this evening.
Yeah, and we have heard that. Practically speaking, how does that happen? How do you make sure your employees feel like they're being heard?
Well, I'll touch on it, but I can go to that right now. I would say one of the easiest and simplest, most cost-effective options is creating an open door culture where anyone, regardless of their position in the organization, can go to that supervisor, that manager, and just have a conversation, whether it's about work or whether it's about what they ate for dinner the night before, what they're doing on the weekend, but just being able to talk and not feeling, well, I can't disrupt my boss, I can't disrupt my supervisor. Their time is valuable, and they really don't want to hear about my petty problems. I think having an open door culture will also lead to a more transparent culture where everything is spoken about and nothing is, shushed away. The other piece there of flexibility and accommodation, we're going to hear those words a lot, but flexibility should be made available to all staff. We've seen throughout the pandemic that employers are touting the word flexibility, and I provide accommodation. In some scenarios, that accommodation and flexibility was just for lower level staff, or it was just for managers, and maybe only managers got to work from home, but all of the other frontline workers had to stay there. And I think flexibility should be available to everyone, whether it's in little things like allowing a person to go take a child to school or rush home to pick up a sick child or take that dog to a vet appointment. I think little things like that will make a big difference in the end, and then build engagement from employees afterwards. Autonomy, we've already heard that term, but increased work autonomy embraces the concept that not everyone's the same. So everyone's going to come to that end result, and in a slightly different way. It's not going to be the same. It may not be what everyone else is doing, but it's okay. And employers should recognize that it's going to be all right. As long as we get to that end goal, it doesn't matter how we got there. Just embrace that everyone is bringing their own unique spin to that.
And is that possible across sectors? Like, is it reasonable to expect most employers are able to offer these kind of things?
I'd like to think so. I know some industries are very structured or very rigid in their approaches. I think if an employer were to think more openly and creatively about it, I think there's a nugget or two that could be pulled from there that could be adapted to that situation. I know retail establishments, for example, have to work within a very strict, confined set of guidelines, and you can't deviate from that plan. But you have to recognize the people you have on your team all come from different backgrounds, have different skill sets, values, and interests, and are therefore going to get to that end goal in a bit of a different manner. And I think celebrating that is huge. Letting everyone know that it's okay that you did it this way, because we still finished with that end result. Health wellness benefits. Most employers offer mental and emotional support programs. That was definitely highlighted throughout the pandemic. But we also saw employers and local employers in our community offering physical benefits packages, whether it's gym memberships, passes, things like that. The ability for a staff member to pay for their sports league fees, for example. There was financial programs offered, as well as community well-being programs. And when we look at community well-being programs, offering incentives for persons to take on volunteer roles. Maybe saying, you have a volunteer commitment at lunchtime today. I want you to take that time, stick to that commitment you've made to help benefit our community, and then when you're done, come on back. And that addresses kind of Crystal's comment about finding value within work as well, right? Yeah, absolutely. Workplace safety. We have COVID-19 safety plans, we have communicable disease plans. Those are part of the new normal that we're in. I don't think they're going to go away just yet, but something an employer could consider, some employers do this, but a lot don't, are having business continuity plans. So as we've seen how pandemics have disrupted businesses and establishments now, maybe we take advantage of what we have learned, build a business continuity plan so we can therefore prepare for what's next. Right. Right, an interesting comment, because we talk often in economic development with businesses about that kind of a plan in place, and most businesses don't think about it because you never think anything's going to happen. And I'll admit, I don't think any of us thought a pandemic would be part of the planning for continuity. Well, just in speaking to local employers, we've learned that we have employers in our community that have these plans that look at natural disaster, fire, earthquake, communicable disease, as that were to transpire as well, and how their workplace is going to adapt if something were to happen. So it could be a lot of work to get started. It doesn't have to be, but I think once it's there, it would make life a lot easier. So if something happens, we then can pivot or transition into that new scenario.
Yeah.
Okay. The final piece there on that list is pay and compensation. Pay and compensation are important. I didn't feel the need to put it up as number one, but just with respect to this category, and it was already addressed already, but just looking at things like, are we paying fairly? So is this business paying fairly to its employees? What kind of benefits are associated with that pay, if anything? And then considering, is my wage competitive for the market or sector that I'm in? And from there, do we need to look at the notion of a fair wage or a living wage? Because we know with housing costs and inflation happening, a person's pay is going to be impacted.
And does NIEFS have any of that data available for employers? Like, are you able to provide some guidance?
We can provide guidance. We can provide information and resources to help with this.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so where do we go from here? We're going to look at skills versus roles, professional development, workforce health, and an open door culture. Okay, and I can see my time already, so I better burn through this.
I think I ate into it a little bit.
No, that's okay. In terms of skill versus roles, employers tend to look for specific skills such as critical thinking, active listening, complex problem solving, and technical skills. But what they should also be looking for are reading comprehension, social perceptiveness, and time management, and being able to look at the job that is posted and thinking, what skills do we have that we can better match that applicant to? And sometimes you're going to have to think outside of the box, right? You're going to have to dig deep into that resume or cover letter that's presented to you and say, okay, look at this candidate. Here are the skills that they're bringing to me. Now, where can I put them within my organization? Professional development, we know that professional development offered in organizations builds engagement, it builds retention. Nonprofits do an excellent job on making those offerings available. Professional development does not have to be large, long, expensive courses. There are plenty of free webinars and services out there that constitute professional development. The session that we're participating in right now can be considered professional development. Workforce health, as we talked about that already, the health measure there is for both the employee and the employer. So again, offering on top of mental and emotional supports, but offering physical, financial, and community well-being programs and services available. Those will pay dividends in the end back to the employers. And then, as I shared already, an open door culture, again, it's going to create value and understanding for both the employer and the employee, and it makes that person feel respected. They know they can go to their employer and really talk about everything and anything and do it without fear of, oh, I seem like I'm nagging them, or I don't want to say that because, you know, the person looks really busy. I don't want to disrupt them. But just having that frank conversation every now and then does wonders for the workplace culture.
Well, and it's good for you as an employer as well to learn from your employee and see where they're at.
Absolutely. Now, I'm bypassing all the data, which is available through our website, so I don't have to go onto that there. But what I did want to share is what our office does, what the Employer Services Division does, is we provide employers with free job postings. We have the ability to host, whether it's in-person or virtual, hiring forums and hiring fairs, information sessions for sectors. We can do wage subsidy work experience placements that allow a person to earn and learn at the same time. We have recruitment and retention info, to answer your question from before, training and skills development. We can provide employers with human resources info, WorkSafe BC info, info and guidance on where to go if an employer has a legal matter that comes up or a labor relations matter if they wanted to discuss. And we also have staff that can talk to employers on inclusive hiring practices.
Excellent, and I think that that's a great explanation of what NIEFS offers, and I think maybe people have had a more limited view of what kind of the supports that you do offer.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of folks think of our organization as just a job seeker support service, which it is, and we do phenomenal things for individuals in our community. But we also have an employer services division that works with employers, large and small, to provide them the info they need to help fill those talent and retention gaps.
Great.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Chris, for sharing that with us, and we'll get your contact information out as well to people.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect.